Yet another story in a string of come-from-behind victories for the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, Nick Lee finds himself down 5-0 at the start of the second period. Early into the match, McKenna took a lefty high crotch from space, not much of a setup and so not much of a shot. Lee catches a front headlock, but the left underhook of Lee's is dug pretty far up there, and so McKenna sits his right leg under, pulls the arm down and across, and does what's known as a dump or barrel roll, giving him a takedown. Lee did avoid back exposure, though I'm not sure if that matters. They were already grounded, and so if McKenna gets the back exposure and winds up on top, it still is only worth 2 points. The dump is easily avoided if you are more shallow with the front headlock, keep your arms free, maintain a little bit of distance, and look for arm drags, snaps, changes of direction, and outside leg attacks. That seems to be what everyone is doing these days, but for some reason Lee isn't able to do that. Maybe McKenna caught the arm and secured it too quickly. It also doesn't help that it's early in the match, so it's fairly easy to grip onto the arm. Later in the match you can slip off easier due to sweat, so something like this is a lot less effective later. Score is 2-0 McKenna. Lee then proceeds to give up 3 push-outs off of shots from McKenna. The first from a double from space, no real setup, but McKenna pulls himself in and drives Lee out. The second one from a lefty single. This time McKenna was baited in because Lee started to do a hard fake high crotch. Super good reaction and timing from McKenna here. He pulls to a high single and eventually walks him out of bounds. The third one comes from a random double that turns into a body lock. They wander towards the edge and McKenna pushes Lee out again. The general theme being McKenna is quick enough to get to the shot and has the strength to pull himself in, but how long can he keep this up? He can't seem to finish these shots, and so even though he got a few push-outs, I still think Lee got the better of those positions, or at least avoided a lot of damage. Through this whole process, McKenna is spending a ton of energy. The better your setups, the better of a situation you find yourself in when you get to a shot, the less energy you have to spend when you get there, and the more of a chance you have to get a good finish. Score is 5-0 McKenna, but these are the last points you'll see McKenna get in this match. 15 seconds into the second, Lee is fighting for wrist control as McKenna steps across with his right crossing his feet, which you should never do. You're warned about this kind of thing when you start wrestling and you go over basic stance drills, but you'll find little mistakes are present everywhere, even at this level. This prompts Lee to take a low leg single on the left leg with his right hand. We would call it a low high crotch, though that's an oxymoron. Lee pulls himself in, puts his head into the leg slightly above the knee. He would pull the ankle towards his chest, putting downward pressure with his head, forcing McKenna to his butt. This is a super good way to finish the shot in folk style to avoid scrambling, even more effective in freestyle because it could lead to an easy leg lace and roll. So McKenna does whatever he can to bail. He jumps up and tries to force Lee out the back door, but Lee keeps his head up like he should, so McKenna falls off to the side, giving Lee his first takedown. Or maybe Lee was trying to cut from the low leg right to the double. Either way, McKenna went airborne. Scores 5-2 McKenna. Lee gets up to a high gut wrench, digs onto the right side, then immediately switches to the left to roll McKenna for 2. This change of direction here is super strong. McKenna is forced to put pressure on the left when Lee threatens the roll on the right in order to stabilize himself. This makes the roll on the left work a lot easier. This idea isn't tried as much as I'd like to see. It's really effective. Score is now 5-4 McKenna. Minute 15 to go in the match. Little wrist control battles are still going on. McKenna takes another random shot from space, no real setup. These shots of his are starting to get real predictable, making Lee's reaction time better and better. Defensive reaction tends to get better and better over time when the offensive guy doesn't change things up or innovate. Lee gets to a front headlock, but this time he makes sure to keep his arms free. He fakes a shot on the right, then snaps the head and circles to the left for the easy go behind. Valencia did something very similar to Brooks. This is what I was talking about before, the short offense they call it now. Staying shallow with your arms, looking to fake, change direction, snap, drag. All of this works really well and is very difficult to keep up with if you can keep your opponent reacting. Score is now 6-5 Lee. While he's at it, and while McKenna gets a little lazy with his leg positioning, Lee keeps pressure with his right shoulder on the hips and reaches down to the legs for a leg lace. This makes sure McKenna can't get up to his base easily to separate his legs. He lifts the ankle, threads his arm through, and proceeds to roll McKenna for another 2 points. The only thing I could figure is McKenna is super tired at this point. Otherwise, he'd be trying his best to keep his feet apart, pull a knee or two forward, and defend a leg lace so he can keep himself in the match. Score is now 8-5 Lee. McKenna is not done taking shots from space without setting them up. He goes for one more high crotch, but to be fair, the leg was up and looked enticing. He did get a piece of it, but wasn't able to do anything. Lee sprawled and circled around for an easy go behind. McKenna stays up in a quad pod to try to avoid the takedown. You need a knee to hit the map for the ref will award 2, but that's easy at this point. Lee locks the leg, throws hip pressure, and the leg buckles, giving Lee the 2. Score is now 10-5 Lee. And so for McKenna, the match got off to a good start, but he just wasn't able to keep the pace. This is probably due to the type of attacks he was forcing. He's likely super strong, and he's definitely quick, so he's able to get there and pull himself in, but the setups are to be desired. And so in order to wrestle the way he does, he must spend a lot of energy. This probably isn't a factor against most of his opponents, so it's very difficult to improve when there's no need. That is, unless you go up against someone like Lee who can withstand the initial offensive onslaught, who won't get tired, and will continue to hunt for points in an intelligent manner. All of this just makes a comeback of this magnitude inevitable.